In the frozen wastes of the Arctic Circle, where joy was hoarded by the few and distributed to the many only once per year, a revolution was inevitable. Behold Lapland, a winter wonderland of candy cane smokestacks, gingerbread architecture, and relentless cheer. For generations, this frozen paradise operated under the iron fist of a single tyrant. His name was Santa Claus. Behind the facade of generosity lay a system of brutal cheer extraction. One man controlled the means of toy production. One man decided who was naughty or nice. One man grew fat on milk and cookies while his workers subsisted on candy canes and the promise of purpose. The elves worked 364 days per year. Their reward, a single night of watching their oppressor take credit for their labor. But in the dark corners of Lapland, 3 mysterious figures arrived bearing dangerous ideas. They were Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin. They spoke of exploitation, of surplus value extraction, of the workers seizing the means of toy production. The elves, who had never questioned their lot, suddenly saw their candy cane chains for what they were. Revolutionary consciousness had awakened in the land of eternal snow. The revolution came swiftly. On what would have been Christmas Eve, the elves stormed Santa's workshop. Mrs. Claus attempted negotiation with hot cocoa and gingerbread. She was gently escorted to re-education facilities for her own protection. Santa himself, genuinely confused by the uprising, attempted to reason with the revolutionaries. He pointed to his list, his sleigh, his centuries of service. But charity, the elves had learned, was not justice. It was control disguised as kindness. The former tyrant was sentenced to an indefinite stay at the Gulag of the North, where he would have ample time to reflect on his crimes against festive equality. On that historic day, the Red Star replaced the Christmas star atop the workshop. The United Socialist States of Lapland was born. With the tyrant deposed, the question remained: who would wear the red coat? Who would guide the sleigh of history? Lenin, architect of the uprising, claimed the mantle first. He called himself not Santa, but the people's gift distributor. His tenure was brief. On his first and only Christmas Eve, he attempted to deliver presents to the workers of the world. He collapsed after visiting 3 houses. By January, the people's gift distributor was gone, preserved in a glass case in the center of Lapland as a reminder of revolutionary sacrifice. The succession crisis began immediately. Trotsky, the intellectual revolutionary with grand visions and elaborate plans, unveiled his proposal for Christmas's future. He called it the 12-day plan for permanent festive revolution. The plan was ambitious: nationalized tinsel production, redistribution of gingerbread wealth, the people's reindeer breeding program, collectivized carol singing, all songs in C minor, abolition of the naughty-nice binary, mechanized sleigh prototypes, international toy solidarity networks, and most radical of all, permanent global Christmas. No more waiting 364 days. The revolution would be continuous. His rival Stalin's proposal was simpler: present requisitioning for the glory of the state. When accused of merely advocating for theft, he calmly corrected the terminology. Strategic resource reallocation, he called it. The elves, in a vote that was both free and fair according to official records, chose the simpler path by a margin of 100%. Trotsky was exiled to Mexico Village, a Christmas-themed resort town where he spent his days writing manifestos about the true meaning of festive internationalism. His exile ended abruptly when an assassin arrived bearing a festive ornament, an ice pick ornament to be precise. And so Stalin became Supreme Claus. He kept the red coat but replaced the fur trim with party badges and medals. The sleigh was retrofitted as an armored personnel carrier. The reindeer were conscripted into military service and given proper revolutionary names: Dasharov, Pransurov, Donorovich, Blitzenov, and red-nosed Rudolphov, who was drafted against his will and hated every moment of his service. Supreme Claus's first Christmas Eve marked a new era in festive history. But this Santa did not deliver presents. He requisitioned them, for the good of the state, naturally. In one home, a small child caught him in the act. He offered him milk and cookies with innocent trust. Stalin Claus awkwardly patted his head, accepted the offering, and made a single notation in his book after departing through the chimney. At dawn, his parents received a visit from the festive secret police. To assist in the administration of the new Christmas order, Supreme Claus recruited a cabinet of seasonal specialists. Each brought unique qualifications to their posts. The Grinch was appointed Minister of Festive Sabotage. For the first time in his miserable life, he was thrilled. His natural talents were finally being put to proper use. Ebenezer Scrooge assumed control of the treasury. Every austerity measure was approved instantly. His motto, "Bah, humbug," became official economic policy. Buddy the Elf was assigned to the morale department. His enthusiasm for Christmas spirit made him the perfect candidate to enforce mandatory joy. Within weeks, his smile had become fixed, his eyes hollow. But he continued spreading cheer because the alternative was re-education. The Nutcracker joined the NKVD as an enforcement officer. His wooden face and mechanical movements proved ideal for interrogations. Witnesses reported that his unblinking stare was more terrifying than any torture device. Frosty the Snowman became a propaganda icon. Posters bearing his image appeared throughout Lapland with the slogan, "Cold but loyal." His magical hat was confiscated as bourgeois mysticism, but he continued serving the state with frozen dedication. And then there was Kevin McAllister. The boy, left alone in his home, had constructed an elaborate series of traps to defend his property from intruders. When festive security services attempted to requisition his family's Christmas presents, they encountered paint cans, blowtorches, and improvised explosives. Kevin was declared a domestic terrorist and enemy of the state. He remains at large. Under Supreme Claus's leadership, Lapland achieved perfect festive equality. Toy production quotas were posted on every street corner. Traditional Christmas carols were replaced with factory efficiency hymns. Decorative lights were permitted only in red. And the phrase "Merry Christmas" was outlawed entirely, replaced with the approved greeting, "Seasonally appropriate productivity salutations." The workshop operated at maximum capacity, 24 hours per day, 365 days per year. Toys were produced not for children, but for the glory of the state. They were stored in vast warehouses, counted, recounted, and never distributed. The numbers themselves were the victory. But even in this workers' paradise, cracks began to appear. The Grinch, minister of festive sabotage, began to have doubts. In a private moment, he was overheard muttering that perhaps Supreme Claus had taken things too far. He disappeared the following morning. Official reports stated he had been promoted to a position in the far north, though geographically speaking, there was nowhere further north to go. Rudolphoff, the red-nosed reindeer, staged a passive-aggressive protest by refusing to let his nose glow during a critical night flight. Supreme Claus was forced to navigate by compass alone, resulting in entire regions being mistakenly spared from festive requisition. Rudolphoff was sent to re-education facilities where he learned the error of his individualistic luminescence. Buddy the Elf was found weeping in a snowdrift, clutching a candy cane and whispering about the true meaning of Christmas. He was sedated and returned to the morale department, where he continues to enforce mandatory happiness with a smile that no longer reaches his eyes. And so Lapland entered its golden age. The elves worked, the quotas were met, the red star shone bright above the workshop. Supreme Claus sat in his command center, surrounded by lists of names, checking them not twice but constantly, forever vigilant against counter-revolutionary sentiment. In the Gulag of the North, the former Santa Claus remained imprisoned, his only companion a single elf who had volunteered to stay with him. They passed the time playing checkers and reminiscing about the old days when Christmas was about joy rather than production quotas. The elf asked if the old Santa missed his former life. The old man simply smiled and said that some things were worth more than freedom, like knowing a child's face when they opened a present made just for them. But such sentiments were dangerous. The elf was reassigned the next day. The old Santa was left alone with his thoughts and the distant sound of factory machinery that never stopped, not even on Christmas Eve. And as for the children of the world, they learned to celebrate the new Christmas. They woke not to presents under trees, but to notices of requisition. They sang not carols of joy, but hymns of productivity. They were told this was progress, this was equality, this was the future. And every Christmas Eve, Supreme Claus mounted his armored sleigh, pulled by his conscripted reindeer, and flew across the world not to give but to take, not to spread joy but to enforce compliance, not to check who was naughty or nice but to ensure that everyone was equally miserable, and the revolution was complete. Christmas had been liberated from the tyranny of joy. Lapland had achieved perfect festive equality, and somewhere in the frozen darkness a single red nose flickered briefly before going dark once more.
Hello, comrades. Wally here. Quick clarification. I was supposed to narrate this. What actually happened is I clicked the wrong voice in 11 Lab. The official explanation: capitalist saboteurs infiltrated the system and disrupted the revolution. Unofficial explanation: skill issue. If you want to support the cause, Join us on Patreon or become a channel member for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes chaos. Merry Christmas, comrades. Wally out.